Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TeacherCast Educational Network. My name is Jeff Bradbury. Thank you so much for joining us today and making TeacherCast your home for professional development. This is TeacherCast Podcast episode number 194. Today, we're going to be talking about how you can build your educational brand. I have three amazing guests on today that have all spent the last many years creating an educational brand for themselves, both in podcasting, tech coaching, blogging, you name it. We've got some great topics today. If you're looking to build an educational brand for yourself, this is the show for you. And I want to say thank you guys for coming on today and making TeacherCast your home for professional development. We got some great things happening on the network these days. If you're a tech coach, you can, of course, check out everything over at AskTheTechCoach.com, where we drop our podcast every single Monday, helping you become a better instructional technology specialist. And, of course, if you're looking to create a podcast in your classroom, we invite you guys to check out our new channel, podcastingwithstudents.com, where we give you everything from curriculum to equipment to applications, reviews, anything that you need to bring podcasting into your classroom. You can check it out over at podcastingwithstudents.com. Now, we're going to be talking a lot over the next few weeks here about branding, how to build a brand, how to create a website for yourself, and that is exactly what we're going to be dealing with today. I want to bring on my first guest, somebody who needs no introduction here on the show. He is the author of the book, Professionally Driven. Your friend and mine, Mr. Jarrod Bormann. Jarrod, how are you today? Welcome to the show.
Woo! I am doing fantastic. Thanks for having me again. It's always a blast to be on TeacherCast with you guys.
It is great to have you on. We're talking all about branding. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I see you all over the place now being professionally driven. Tell us a little bit about who Jarrod Bormann is.
So right now, my day job actually is instructional technology, but I'll be moving into an instructional coaching role starting next year. And my other passion that I have is professional learning for educators. And so with the book Professionally Driven, that allowed me to get a voice into that sort of arena of education. And it was a need that I saw, and that allowed me to continue to push that mission and that message to empower adult learners just as much as we try to preach empowering student learners. And with that, just continually putting the message out there, you get pockets of people that say, I like that message, that's important. And then that kind of leads to some other things. So now I have the opportunity to do a weekly vlog for Disrupted TV called Disrupted PD. And I really enjoy that. I thoroughly enjoy having a different kind of platform now to be able to spread that message and have it heard by a larger group.
You are very, very good at finding a niche, something that people want to learn about, and then helping them create content on multiple platforms. And that is something that we also have in our second guest. I want to bring on from the great state of New Jersey, the Super Joe Pardo. Joe, how are you today? Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. It's so awesome to be back here. I'm so glad that you asked me. How are you feeling? Are you feeling good?
I am doing well. It is great to have you here. I understand there's a lot of neat things happening, but Joe, before we get into all the wonderful things that are going on, you've got some new things going on in your brand. Not only is MapCon doing well, we're going into year number what?
5. MapCon 5.
Yeah. But MapCon is officially moving into the biggest location possible. Tell everybody where they can go to learn all about podcasting this year in one central location.
MidAtlanticPodcast.com. We're moving to Atlantic City at the awesome Ocean Resort.
MapCon is a fantastic conference. I've been there for the last 5 years. The who's who of podcasting come there every single year. We have a great time. Joe, about how many people are going to be arriving this year in Atlantic City?
We're gunning for at least 200 this year, which is a pretty hefty addition to previous years. About almost twice as much.
Now we're looking forward today to learn a little bit about the man behind the Super Joe Pardo. We're going to be asking him a little bit later on, why is he super? How did he become super? And he's going to be telling you guys how Super Joe Pardo now you've got a new adventure coming up, don't you, Joe? We're going to tease this for later, but you've got a new adventure coming up, don't you? It's pretty visual, I would say, right?
It is pretty visual, and I haven't talked about it anywhere else yet, so this would be a first.
I'm looking forward to that. And of course, if you guys have any questions out there, we are here each and every day. You can find us over on TeacherCast.net. Find us on Twitter at TeacherCast. And if you have any questions about branding, leave us a voice message at TeacherCast.net/voicemail or email us at feedback@TeacherCast.net. And I want to introduce our last guest. He is from the chilly place known as Maine. But he is not a stranger to anybody out here who is listening. He is the author and the creator of Free Tech for Teachers. I want to bring on today Mr. Richard Byrne. Richard, how are you today?
I'm cold, but otherwise pretty good. Cold and tired. I've been up since 4 a.m.
Oh my goodness. Is that because of the little one that you have at home?
Yeah, it's because of the kids. The kids, well, they don't get up that early. I get up early so I can have coffee and a moment of silence.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to know that everybody has different schedules. It's nice to know that it does take getting up at 4 a.m. sometimes just to kind of get the body going, to kind of get the fingers going on the keyboard. Richard, I want to start with you because everybody who's listening to this show today knows or has visited or has referenced or has checked out the RSS feed of Free Tech for Teachers.
Stolen it.
Talk to us a little bit about it. What is Free Tech for Teachers? How did you get started with the blog?
So I started almost 12 years ago. I just started writing some things down. That was really about it. There was no grand scheme, no grand plan to it. I'd gone to a little workshop for my school as part of a grant fulfillment, and one of the topics was educational technology. And I'd been doing some stuff in my classroom, dabbling a little bit here and there, and I needed to have something to show at the end of this workshop. And so I put a blog on Blogger. I called it Free Technology for Teachers. That was it. That was the whole plan.
It was that simple.
It was that simple. It wasn't. I didn't sit down and have a business plan. I didn't know people made a living blogging. I had no idea about that.
And 15,000 posts later, right?
It's probably more than that. Yeah. Conservatively, it's 15,000 blog posts that I've published. Yeah. So.
But let's be honest here, right? I know you're kind of humble in this, but I mean, if you're looking for where do I go to learn about something, and you just get the random person, they know about Free Tech for Teachers, right? I mean, you are a machine when it comes to putting out content. About how many blog posts you put out, a day, on a normal day?
I've slacked off in the last year. I'm down to like 100 blog posts a month.
Okay, that's a lot.
But, part of that is I've been working on other projects. I have this book that I've been tinkering with for like 2 years now that maybe I'll finally finish this spring. I've got some other irons in the fire. I run the Practical Ed Tech site. I started a new project in January, actually late December, launched it in January, called Ed Tech Fitness, which I'm really kind of passionate about, which is about helping teachers think about their personal fitness, their mental health, and their physical well-being, and then a little bit of, and I'm going to start dabbling in some financial fitness stuff as well, which is a lot of do what I say, not what I do, or don't do what I did, kind of stuff. But to get back to Free Tech for Teachers, a lot of people know the site, they don't know me. Which, if you want to talk about branding, is a big mistake.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
No one and there's another blog out there. I won't name it, but there's another blog out there that came along 5 or 6, 7 years ago now. I'm trying to think of when I first noticed it, 2012. So what's that? 7 years ago. It had a name very similar to mine, and an approach similar to mine, and started to scrape a lot of stuff very, very similar to mine, as in change 2 words and hey, it's the same blog post. And so there's some brand confusion that sometimes people are like, hey, do you see this thing by Richard? I'm like, that's not my site, but thanks. And I've actually had people come up to me and say, oh, will you sign this? And it's a printout of someone else's blog. Oh, I saw this article you wrote. Yeah, I'd sign it, but that's not mine.
Oh,
so
okay. Okay.
There's some lessons there in branding. Like I said, I didn't have a plan. I had no plan. When I finally learned that people make some money blogging, my grand plan was I'm just going to write as much as I possibly can. Like that was my whole plan. Like once I finally got a plan, it was still a loose plan, and it was just to write as much as I possibly could. That was it. Which is a plan that I stole from Pete Cashmore, who started Mashable. Pete Cashmore, for folks who don't know who he is the person who started Mashable, and back in like 2008, 2009, 2008 was. I saw a video of him and Robert Scoble talking about how to launch a blog, and his advice was just write everything you can. And so that's what I did.
And look, as we get started here, I have no problem saying on air, as I've said it to your face as many times, the three of you guys have been extremely influential in the work that we're doing here on TeacherCast. I mean, Richard's idea of just write as much as you can somehow turned into TeacherCast having nine podcasts on iTunes, and every single night we're doing stuff. And even today, I'm looking at my calendar going, I don't have anything tonight. Oh, let's put together a show. And really, it comes down to this question. And let's just kind of open the field here. But let me start with you, Super Joe Pardo. What is a brand? When we say the word brand, I know the word gets overused, but give me the Cliff Notes version here. What is a brand?
Well, we were talking about cows in Iowa earlier. I think that's somewhere along the line. I mean, it's the Garden State here, so we got cows too. But it's really about getting recognized for something that's a bit greater than the one thing that you might have done, right? And it's about creating an experience for the people, the readers, the purchasers, the clients, whoever it is, that just like when they think of this, they think of you, or they think of the brand. And I think I do a couple different ways with a couple different things that I do. And one being, say, MapCon, right? Like, I'm not the brand of MapCon, right? MapCon is its own thing. Now, once you've come to MapCon, then you get to meet me and all the people there and all that stuff. And that really, to me, is more of the brand, the people. But that's only after you see, like, oh, it's the Mid-Atlantic Podcast Conference. That sounds official. It sounds like the Azroth Group or something like that, like it sounds official and should have like a insignia, like the shield insignia. But that's the thing, is like you have to decide like what's going to be the thing that your business, whether it's you, is known for.
So, and I agree with you, right? It's what are you known for? The question often comes up, can people create the brand for you? Right. And I kind of think that, yes, people can create the brand for instance, let's take Jarrod, for instance. Before the book came around, before he started working with Disrupt Ed, I knew Jarrod as the tech coach person that I went to Jarrod for tech coach advice constantly. And now, because he had that, now came the book, now came the PD sessions, now came Disrupt Ed. Jarrod, talk to us a little bit about your travels here, because I knew Jarrod, the tech coach, and now I'm learning who Jarrod the author is, or Jarrod the professionally driven. That's reverse from my story. But tell us a little bit about how you're building your brand with this.
So, and probably to sort of put my face out there and get my message out there, I'm not going to lie, I was probably retweeting a lot of Richard's stuff, which helped me sort of allowed myself to join the niche of educational technology. Not just my passion and the knowledge I had, but getting into that niche, then it quickly became apparent that a lot of the learning that adults do around educational technology really focused on the idea of trainings versus actual authentic learning. And so when I started to think deeper about that, and when I got into my new role and I had the opportunity to be in different schools, I started to see a very continuous pattern about, we want kids to learn one way, but yet we're expecting adults to learn a very traditional way. And so I just started to join conversations. I had a network of people that I had built up within my Twitter groups and all of that. I started joining some more Voxer groups, have conversations with people around professional learning, and that influences my thinking. It starts to allow me to see the need. So when you talk about someone building your brand, it's not like I paid someone and said, "Hey, build my brand for me." It was like the brand started to develop with what it is happening. So really the title of professionally driven was just reusing the two letters PD to change the negative connotations that we associate with those letters to something that we are proud to be and want to own and represent us. And so that became the message and the mission all in one. And I got to give credit to one of my colleagues here at the agency, Bev Burns, who threw that idea out there, and it was like, yes, that's what we're trying to get to. Like, I really couldn't pinpoint and concisely say and define the process of learning that I'm trying to influence until that was created. And I was like, boom. Then it was from there, I was able to then spread that idea into bigger other elements. Like, what does it mean for an educator? Does it mean the same thing for an administrator? Does it mean this, what does all of that look like? And so the idea of the book didn't even come to me. Someone came to me, it's like, because there were several schools in my area that were utilizing the model, and they saw the re-empowerment of like educators. We saw educators that were in the game of teaching 20 plus years all of a sudden become reignited and be passionate about their profession once again. And that's ultimately what I want for every single educator. And so someone said, well, then you got to write a book. And that's when I started to plug away at a book.
Richard mentioned something earlier about the idea that when you go to Free Tech for Teachers, you know the website, but you might not know the guy behind it. And this is an interesting concept here, because this is what we ran into here of, I built up TeacherCast and got it going and got it moving, and you realize that people know the apple, but they don't know the boy. A lot of people have come up to me over the last couple weeks and said, I have this awesome and funky Twitter account. Should I get that as my domain? And so, Richard, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. Like, when you're starting out as a content creator, I don't want to say brand yet, but let's just say content creator, should you be branding a concept? Should you be branding your name? And are there advantages to both? I mean, if you had to start it over again, would you call it Free Tech for Teachers, or would you call it richardbyrne.com?
That's a good question. It kind of depends on the day and my attitude that day. To be totally honest. So the Free Tech for Teachers thing worked out really well from an SEO standpoint without me knowing anything about SEO. That was just everyone's. And so from that perspective, I would use that again. And by the way, I've bought like 35 variations of it now. So
I know that.
Good luck trying to get it. And so I find myself in this quandary all the time, and it kind of depends on what do you want to do. And I found myself here about 6 or 7 years ago. Kind of found myself at this crossroads of, do I want to build it up as keep going as free technology for teachers? And you'll see now on my banner, which I'm going to redesign again because I'm a lot older and fatter than I used to be, my picture written by Richard Byrne underneath it. So I could kind of do both things. If I was the type of person who wanted to manage people and like actually build out a company that had people working for me and writers working for me, free technology for teachers would be great. It'd still be great. But as a one-man show, which is all I really am, I've hired assistants at various times to do some stuff for me, but nothing, no one's ever been full-time or even, on a salary or any kind of hourly wage for me. So, from that perspective, like if I wanted to do more of the who is Richard sort of thing, I'd probably call it Richard Byrne.
But on the other side here, we have superjoepardo.com. Joe, talk to us a little bit about why is it important that is your name? And not that I'm suggesting you become mapcon.com, but why I mean, look, you put an adjective in front of your name here. Give us the thought process here, because clearly, it's working, my friend.
It's like I get mixed reviews about that all the time, and mostly from my family. But so here's the thing, right?
Wait. I'm sorry. Your family or your in-laws?
No, my family. I think my in-laws actually like it. I don't think that they have a problem with it. But it's so I started out as the Dreamers podcast, and I'm like, oh, this is the brand, right? Like this is what's gonna take off, and it's gonna be awesome. And while it did have traction, about 2 years into it, I was like, the brand is really me. It's not Dreamers podcast, like I wanted it to be originally. Because if I died or went away, like the show is done, it's over, it goes away. And I just felt that I wanted to take it and just like, okay, I'm just going to really inject myself into the show because at the time I was doing a lot of interview based stuff. So it's like, okay, my episodes and my show was revolving around my guest. And as I evolved as time went on to want to be more in the forefront instead of just being the host and like asking the questions and things like that. So the Super Joe Pardo thing came, for anyone who doesn't know, came from back in 2006. I started my show in 2014, but one of my best friends drew a picture of like a stick figure kind of picture. It's on my website and my about, and wrote like, Super Joe when I was feeling really down about myself and what was going on around in my life at the time. So because of my attitude and wanting to bring the super out of other people, it just made sense to be like, okay, well, I'm just going to own this thing. And I don't know what it's going to look like. And there's going to be people that might not take it seriously and might like, oh, that like that's is like a jackass, kind of thing. But the way I see it is like, look, I'm building this brand to the point where once I'm big and known anyway, it's not going to matter. Right, because people are going to know what it's all about, and that's what I'm all about. So it doesn't matter that like there's a handful of people, some of my family, that really feel really passionate about the fact that I should ditch that and just be Joe Pardo. But I think it's important to have something that identifies you. And to Richard's point, I think that it is an interesting conundrum. Like you don't have Richard not having other people write for him like that. It does like, okay, well, he is the brand, even though the brand is supposed to be free tech for teachers. It could really go either way. But now that you're as big as you are, Richard, like you could make that decision to say, I'm going to start something separate that's where I'm in the forefront, that's more focused on what I want to be focused on, and then try to advertise that to that audience and see if it catches.
It's funny. I was talking to my therapist about that.
That's not funny. That's not funny. I'm not going to laugh about that.
I actually was talking to my
That's
therapist
awesome.
about this.
Good for you, Richard.
This is why I podcast. I mean, which is
hashtag EdTech Fitness. Because I was actually talking about the EdTech Fitness thing of like, what do I really want to do with it? Like the whole branding thing of, I'm not. People who know me know I'm kind of a locked up Puritan, Presbyterian, Northern New Englander. Like we're not known for our Tony Robbins evangelical kind of outgoing, right? So I was like, no offense to Tony Robbins, like if you're that guy, awesome. But like that's not my personality. Like I'm not going to be like leading a fire walk or like that sort of thing, right? So we're starting to think about like, what am I going to do with it? Am I going to try to get other people involved? And that's kind of what I decided to do. Is like I'll get other people involved in a way where they're empowered to have a voice and participate as opposed to just me kind of pontificating, because I do kind of come across as pontificating sometimes when I don't mean to, which is something my significant other tells me sometimes. Is that like, hey, you're coming across as, she'll say a jackass, but yeah, like so yeah, so I'm rambling, but to Joe's point of if I die tomorrow, I could hand off free technology for teachers to any number of people, and they could still get and most people wouldn't even know, right, that I was dead, other than maybe the new person would be like, "Hey, Richard died, and I'm in charge now," right? So there's that piece, but like Joe, if you die, podcast is over and everyone's going to know.
Yeah,
Or
the
Joe,
face is
like
gone, right? Like now, I'm
the
just
example is Joe Rogan, right? Think about the Joe Rogan experience. He's got like bajillions of followers, but it's not just him. It's like all the guests that come on. I don't know. I'm rambling. I'll shut up.
no. It's definitely about him
this
though,
is why
because
I like to follow Richard's RSS feeds.
it's definitely about him though, and I think when I was getting started, that was one of the mistakes I made, was making the show all about the guests. And it was about 75 episodes in. I'm hanging out with a friend of mine who I unfortunately don't talk to anymore. And she's like, Joe, why do people watch Ellen? And I was like, well, because it's Ellen. And she's like, exactly. Ellen's going to be on that show every single day. There might be a celebrity on tomorrow, a heartwarming story the next day, and another celebrity the next day, and another celebrity, and then another heartwarming story. But it's Ellen through the whole thing, and she sets the tone, and that's where it's like, having the questions, having the content, driven by you isn't necessarily enough. You got to like literally be driving and hanging out the window, screaming your name, and because nobody's going to be as proud and as happy and passionate about what you're happy and passionate about as you are. So that's like, it's got to ooze that to people to get behind it.
So let's talk about that, right? Because when you're building a brand, as Joe just said, it is all about that content, right? When I go to Free Tech for Teachers, I know I'm going to get amazing content, small bursts. It's going to have some videos. It's going to be everything that I need. When I go to another one that I always follow, teachers.tech, a good friend, Jamie Keat, you know that there's going to be a great video and a lot of amazing content underneath of it. I got to tell you, I don't follow that model. TeacherCast is kind of all over the place. But talk to us a little bit about building your brand through that content, right? If we're going to describe brand building as what are you known for, Jarrod, talk to us a little bit about some of the things that you've done recently, because you've been coming out with some really cool videos on tech coaching, professional development. Talk to us a little bit about your content strategy.
So I'm going to be honest with you. I've kind of struggled internally on my own a little bit with that exact same topic. So I know that with the brand Professionally Driven, the main gist is empowering educators to be autonomous learners. Well, when you do that, training is a small piece of that. So when I go on a bigger learning journey, like say I'm in the research phase of my learning journey, but I identify for myself that I need to know more information about blank. A part of that might be this training that I've identified for myself. What I see a lot of educators do is they just go, and this is where I struggle with this. I see a lot of educators, they say, I want to go on Twitter and learn everything. Like I want to go over here, over here, over here, over here. And they don't necessarily have a purpose. Like they're shopping. They're not buying, right? They're going to the mall. They're not going to Amazon. And so my goal has always been to try to just sort of not fall into the niche of training and be like, okay, today I'm going to talk to you about blank, and it's going to revolve around a singular thing that it might be around, may not be around. What I'm trying to get is change the mindset of the educators to say, let's go just past that and let's think about the bigger learning journey first. If it involves that training, then you need to go to Richard Byrne's site and you need to check out some of the great stuff he's got there if you've identified this as the missing piece to your journey that you need to go on. So I do feel that I've kind of pigeonholed myself a little bit, and I struggle with this because I'm like, eventually you see it on with YouTube people all the time. They pigeonhole themselves into a particular niche, and then it's like, well, holy cow, how do you do 5 years worth of episodes off of that, right? And somehow they still do it, or they end up fizzling out, one or the other. And so my goal is always, the word sustainability is like my mantra, right? Like I don't want necessarily me to be sustainable. I want the message to be sustainable. I want the mentality and the mindset to be sustainable. And so, yeah, I kind of like, sometimes I do feel like I've pigeoned myself into that content part, but honestly, what I'm now starting to do is pull in more voices from educators who can comment on, yes, that particular part of adult learning, when I experienced this, boom, like I now felt like I was going from traditional passive compliant learner, I put in quotes because that's not a true learner, to now full-blown autonomous. I know exactly what it is I want to learn, and I'm going to go for it. And they're reignited as a real, authentic learner.
So when
I want to pull those voices in.
So when you're creating this, do you have a roadmap? Do you have a spreadsheet? Do you have a whiteboard? Like, how do you know where you're going with your content journey?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm only about 6 episodes into this thing.
Okay.
When it comes to my vlogging. So I will say that I'm still trying to feel things out. What I really am paying attention to is I'm really relying on Disrupt Ed TV to provide me some analytics in terms of what's resonating with people. Not only that, I'm prompting inside my vlog, give me feedback. Is this stuff that you're wanting? I'm actually going out on Twitter. I'm going through my Voxer groups that I got set up. And like, if this is the gist and the message of the channel, what are some things that you would envision being a part of that? And now I'm taking in that feedback and crowdsourcing that stuff.
Well, let's flip that coin, because you're talking about being focused, but you use the word sustainability. Richard, on the other hand, you're doing a dozen posts a day. You've got videos, but your posts could be anything from my favorite add-ons for Google Docs to, hey, storyboard that has a new thing, to you name it, it's under the sun, but it's sustainability. And you're constantly popping out these great posts. I don't want to say the wrong question here, but do you... I want to ask the question, do you care about analytics? Because I know you do, but when you're churning out the content, are you stopping to see, well, my Google Slides posts are doing well, or my Microsoft posts are doing well, or what is your content strategy? Is there one?
Write as much as possible.
Okay.
No, really, yeah. I have times when I look at analytics. I don't harp on it like I never really harped on it. I look at the overall scheme of just traffic in general, like, for the month or for the quarter or for the year. I'll look at the traffic overall. The only metric that I really care a lot about is actually email subscribers. That's the one metric that I do pay close attention to. The other metrics are nice to have. They can be helpful. If I'm stumped, like, oh, I need to write something, I will go and look at the Google Analytics and see what's resonated well, see what kind of keywords people have searched for when they've landed on my site. I'll do that, but I do that very, very rarely. It might be once every couple of months that I resort to doing that. The list posts, I got to be honest with you guys, I hate writing them. I absolutely hate writing. They're the laziest, stupidest things you can write.
But they get hits.
They get hits, and so this, getting back to the branding thing, this is a struggle I have with myself all the time. Usually it happens somewhere around right after lunchtime every day, which is about when I get tired because I've been up since 4 a.m. I struggle with and I actually wrote a blog post about this 2 years ago, because I'll get invited to conferences and people know me as the guy that rattles off 60 tools in 60 minutes, right? Which I can do in my sleep. Or I can write off the blog post, it's 25 great Google Docs add-ons, right? Not a whole lot of substance to that. And so when I go to a conference and I try to do something different, sometimes people are like, oh, that's not what I thought it was going to be, because I actually did something that's a little bit more in depth and wasn't the superficial 25 tools in 25 minutes sort of stuff. But to keep the business going, as it were, you gotta write those things sometimes. Like anyone who blogs for a living, and I guess that's what I do. I blog for a living and I speak for a living and I consult with schools. One of my favorite things, by the way, is actually not even doing I love going to conferences. Don't get me wrong. I like going to conferences. But what I really like is school-based PD. Like next week, I'm spending the entire week in one school that I spent 2 weeks with last fall. And that's the sort of thing that I really get excited about, because then it's not like, the people who know me at the school before I get there, are like 3 people, right? It's like 3 people in the school who know me, which is what got me hired. Then there's 112 people who don't have any clue who I am and are going to get to use all this stuff that I've been researching for years, right? And I get to actually do in-depth stuff. So that's the branding thing that I always struggle with, because like 25 posts and 25 ways to use Google Docs. You, me, and 97,000 other people can write that. You can get someone on Fiverr to write that if you want for $5, but it's really the more in-depth stuff, the tutorial stuff, which is why I try to spend more time lately. And this is the other reason why some of my blog post counts have gone down a little bit, is trying to do something that's not easily replicated by others, not easily and not so easily ripped off, to be honest with you. And that's a whole nother issue, is the whole plagiarism.
Yeah, and I want to get into that, because
a whole other thing, for another podcast.
It's a difficult thing, right? Even on TeacherCast, we've written the here's my 5 favorite microphones, or my 32 favorite WordPress plugins or stuff like that, and those are nice. You kind of have to have those resources, because if someone's on Twitter saying I need a microphone, you throw them the blog post and everyone's happy. Yep. But this past weekend we put out here's my microphones that I use for traveling and why I do it. It was like a 1,200 word thing. I really put my time into it. Those are the ones you start getting the relationships with, because those are the ones that people comment on.
Right.
You and I have talked about this a lot, Richard, of do you put comments on your blog or not? And after 8 years, I'm still having that question, because most of the comments I spam or they go away. And I don't think you have comments on your blog anymore, right?
No, I don't. And let me backtrack just for a second to wrap up my other thought about the list post. I have to give a lot of credit to Ginger Lumen. We had a chat. She probably doesn't remember it now. A few years back, when I was moaning about having to write a list post and how I didn't want to do it, and she had a good point. She said, you got to do those things so that people will discover your other stuff, your deeper stuff. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of like made it a little bit okay with me. Like, okay, yeah, if I write a list post this week or a couple of times this week, good, might get some new people in there to read some of the other stuff, to explore the rest of the site, that sort of thing. So.
Joe, you're shaking your head yes.
Yeah, well, it's easy to share, right? Because like other people can say, oh, look, I agree with this. I agree with this. Here, go with this. And I don't have to tell you the same thing over that I would tell somebody else anyway. So I think that's awesome.
Talk to us a little bit about your content creation, right? Because, as you said, people are coming to – I'm watching your shows because not only are you a good friend of mine, but I'm interested in seeing what you're doing. For my chair – like I said, I study what you guys are doing and how it's working and how the brand building, and now you've got this amazing opportunity to be on. We're going to talk about that in a second, Joe.
That's good tease there. Having a show that has changed and evolved over the years, right? Like my show was called the Dreamers Podcast, right? To get to talk about branding, until I was like, I got nominated for Business Podcast of the Year award. And I'm like, I really want to make the show more about me. I want to make it more targeted to the business audience that I'm trying to obtain for coaching clients and consulting clients and things of that nature. And I was like, well, I got nominated for this award. Then it turns out I won the award. And I was like, whoa, like that's insane. Like, like I literally cried, because I was like, I never thought 3 years earlier that this would be anything, like that. And right after that, I changed the name of the show to Business with Super Joe Pardo. And since then, it has just been so much easier for me, because, before it was called the Dreamers Podcast, Business Lessons from Those That Live Their Dreams. And some of my business friends were like, I love you and I love listening to your show, but if I didn't know you from anyone else, I would just pass over the fact that the name is called Dreamers Podcast, and it's the artwork is in like Sharpie marker, and it's this show that is really in depth and I love it, but it's just not the same thing. So, and to go along with that, I wanted to make it so that the show was more about me and what my skill set is, rather than just what everybody else I know or meet bring to the table. So I still do interview episodes, but they're not every single week. There's a lot of episodes like that are intentionally about 10 minutes or less, because coincidentally, LinkedIn only allows 10-minute videos or less. So that's why, if you've noticed lately, Jeff, my episodes have gotten shorter and shorter and shorter, because I want to keep under that 10 minutes. It used to be like 15, 20 minutes. I would talk about a topic and talk about what I have going on and all that stuff. But now I'm just like, I got to get in and out, because I want to be able to take that video, share it on LinkedIn, and on there it'll get like 100, 150 views like that, versus like, okay, downloads might get 100 out of the gate and then slowly build out over time. It's like right out of the gate, like I'm getting 100 some views on LinkedIn, because they want people sharing video there. They want people sharing those lessons, and that's where the business professionals are. So, adjusting that my content has taken a little bit of time and, thought into like, how am I going to make this so that it's marketable, shareable, and attention grabbing. And I think that's also one of the other reasons that, going with the Super Joe Pardo moniker is like, look, I just want you to feel something. Like, you can feel like, oh, this guy's a donkey, or this guy knows what he's talking about. But either way, you thought about it. And that is what I want you to, that's the process that I want you to invoke first and foremost. So that, because if you don't feel nothing, then I got a problem, right? Then I'm not doing my job. I'm not branding properly. You got to feel something.
So the question is, how do we get started? How do we find out our niche? How do we build a content strategy? We're going to talk a little bit about that and wrap up our show after these important messages. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for checking out today's program. I wanted to take a moment today to talk to you about my friends at Student Treasures. You see, Student Treasures has been turning students into published authors for more than 20 years. They've been providing everything that you need to turn your class into published authors, and they do it for free. Student Treasures' free publishing kit makes it easy, and this hands-on writing activity motivates your students to write and inspires them to learn by turning their writing and illustrations into a one-of-a-kind book. Creating a class book promotes student collaboration, builds self-esteem, and is an easy way to incorporate all of the educational standards. So you see, when you turn your students into published authors, you'll automatically receive a free teacher's copy of your class's book, along with any copies ordered by their parents. Nothing will motivate your students more than seeing their work come to life in a real book. But don't take our word for it. More than 440,000 teachers have turned over 14 million students into published authors with Student Treasures. You don't want to miss the looks on their faces when they see their works come to life in a professionally bound book. They'll love looking back on this treasured keepsake for years to come. Learn more about publishing and turn your class into proud authors at studenttreasures.com/TeacherCast. And we are back today talking to three amazing individuals here, each who have built a brand for themselves. I want to reintroduce Super Joe Pardo, Jarrod Bormann, and of course Richard Byrne here. Three people who have been in their own niche, the leaders of their fields. And today we're really talking about how to build that brand. If you guys have any questions for us here on TeacherCast or anybody, you can, of course, reach out to us on Twitter at TeacherCast. Leave us a voice message over at teachercast.net/voicemail, or we love your questions over at feedback@teachercast.net. Let us know. We're going to be doing a lot of shows on branding. There's a ton of topics we don't even have time to get to today about websites, social media, logo, brand, all these different topics we're going to be hitting over the next few weeks. We want to know what you guys are having questions about. Certainly check us out on our social media channels. Now, before we took a little bit of a break, we were talking a little bit about how do we get started? What do we do here? Let me just kind of do some rapid fire questions, and maybe we'll kind of just, everybody can take an answer to this. If I'm starting out today and I wanted to build a brand, do I find a catchy domain, or do I use my name and build from there? Jarrod, what do you think?
Well, I go back and forth on that every day, honestly, because I have a website called professionallydriven.com. I don't have a professionally driven Twitter handle. I keep all my social media still underneath my name, but the website domain is still underneath the brand itself. So Do I go back and debate that? Yeah, you bet I do.
Joe, what do you think?
Yeah.
I switched to Super Joe Pardo everything, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of it. But that's because I'm the brand, right? And you have to make that decision of, am I the brand, or is there a business that I'm building that I can have other people work at and other people that, contribute to and share the overall profits, the fruits of the labor.
Rich, I'm going to throw the same question to you, but I'm going to ask it in a different way. Are you a blogger that has a speaking career, or do you want to be a speaker that has a blogging career? And does that determine the answer?
Yes. Yes. I mean,
yes.
The answer is both, both and neither, because really, like I said, what I like speaking, and sometimes I'm good at it, I think. What I really like is working with people in smaller settings. Right? Like, that's where the more meaningful stuff is good. Like, a keynote is great because people laugh, they think, they cry, they go have a coffee, right? And then they run around and meet people, and then they forget half of what you said, or maybe more, right? Like, your best keynotes are only like 20 minutes long, right? So so I'm a blogger that likes to do consulting. That's the answer to that.
Here's my answer, and this is the one that I give all of my clients. My answer is, if you have a quirky brand, all right? Like, and I'll Jarrod, can I use you as an example here for a second?
Yeah, go for it. Yep.
Jarrod is Jarrod Bormann is a great name, but he's also got professionally driven. If you're going to build one website, my advice for anybody out there is get both domains. Register JarrodBormann.com as the main domain name on your site, so that way Google looks for that first. But then also, if you have professionaldriven.com, forward that to a specific landing page or set of pages.
And that's available. JarrodBormann.com is available right now.
Oh, I'm buying that.
Well, come on.
Richard, pause that.
Richard, come on. You didn't give me a chance.
We're gonna
had like 20 years to do this.
Free tech for JarrodBormann.com is coming to Richard soon. We're going to make sure we have this. But I think that makes sense, right? Like, Google, we always talk about top level domains. Make sure that Google can find you. Richard and I are kind of on one side. Jarrod and Joe are on the other side, where, Richard and I have TeacherCast and free tech. People know that first, whereas nobody can deny Super Joe Pardo is what people are searching for. Figure out what works best for you. My advice is always, make sure that your main website is your name, and go from there. Even if you have a quirky Twitter account, always have your name.
Can I add two things to that?
You can add two things to that.
No, I own both of my kids' domain names, like DominicPardo.com and AvaPardo.com. Get them. I had to pay over $800 for my name, which I thought was kind of cheap. So it's for JoePardo.com. So, it took a while for me to do that. So get your name regardless.
Just tell me that was coincidence and you didn't pick the name based off the domain being open.
It just happened to be the case. It just happened to be the case.
He's winking.
So the conversation ever happened with your wife? So the conversation ever happened with your wife? Hey, honey, we have to go with this name because it's an available domain.
No, that did not come up. Come up.
There's no adjectives in front of their names at all yet. There's no.
The other thing is, I should get Super Ava Pardo and Super Dominic Pardo, but the other thing is, I also have howtodream.co, which I got from the howtokiss.com, which was like the was something on Shark Tank where they had like chapsticks. It was 2 different chapsticks, and when you kiss, it makes like a different flavor or something like that. Yeah, so I was like, I got to get howtodream.co. Like, I wanted to get .com, but they want like stupid money for it, and I was like, yeah, I'm not giving you $10,000. Sorry.
Richard, what's the wackiest domain name you have? I gotta ask now that we're on the topic here.
I don't really own anything that wacky. They're all pretty generic. I'm in my GoDaddy account right now, actually looking at it. So I do own one that has no bearing on anything at all, but this is a great. So in my previous home, the real estate developer was a rectum. I just did not like the guy at all. We lawyered up a few times, didn't like. So it turns out he ran for senator in Delaware not that long ago.
And became vice president?
No. And his name was Independent Alex.
Oh, boy.
Was his web domain when he ran for Senate. He forgot to renew it. Guess who owns it? I own a domain out of spite. It's the best $12 I spend every year because I'm hoping he runs for Senate again someday, and I can, try to sell it to him for a king's ransom.
I own dirtycword.com.
Yeah, so independentalex.com is a domain that I own, mostly to get back at a real estate developer from Delaware who tried to screw me over on a couple of deals.
Oh, I've been doing this for 8 years, guys. This is the first show I have to put explicit tags on.
Oh, don't do it. Don't make the whole thing. Just edit it out.
I'm not gonna put the episode number, Joe. I'm just gonna put explicit. What about the longevity here? Let's just kind of wrap up this because really the question here is like, what advice do you have for people? And Joe, talk to us about the podcasting realm of this, right? Talk about the brand building when it comes to that show. We've talked on this show about your first podcast is not as good as your second. I'm sure Richard might say your first blog post is not as good as your 15,000th blog post. All those different things, but Joe, be super for us right now. If you're going to be entering the I want to public speak, I want to be a persona. What advice do you have for us, Joe?
Speak an awful lot. When I got started with podcasting, I was interviewing everybody and anyone I could just so I could get the experience and the practice and get my reps in. And, you have to take any kind of speaking gig that you can get, go and speak at the Rotary clubs to the geriatric clubs, all the clubs. You go wherever you can go to just go and put mouth to audience and get your thoughts and everything out there, and structuring, right? Like there's a lot of things, like even in the last year, like I've learned so much about speaking, and even not putting like my last talk I did was at Podcast Movement in Philadelphia, and I did not have a title screen, like a title slide. I was like, you know what? I'm not doing the title slide this time. And I went right into the talk, and I felt like it went really, really, really well. It was very well received, just like going straight in and starting with a question and doing like the whole TEDx kind of talk thing, but doing it for a not TEDx audience.
Jarrod, what advice do you have? You're starting off with Disrupted. You're trying to build a brand. You're doing a great job with that. What advice would you give somebody who was in that position to really put their foot on the gas?
I tell you what, I've had a few opportunities come up in the last few years where someone has reached out to me and said, hey, we really want to partner up on this, or we really want to partner up on this and all of that. And I really do lean on my closest PLN group of like 6 or 7 people who are pretty much like in that same kind of realm. And I'm like, boy, I have never encountered this before. What are your guys' thoughts? And usually someone's like, oh, I've been in something similar. Stay away from that. Or, yeah, this is total baloney. Don't even pay attention to it. And I tell you what, the Disrupted Ed or the Disrupt Ed TV opportunity was the first thing that came up where it was unanimous. They're like, that sounds like it's legit. Like that sounds like a good opportunity to get your foot in the door with an audience that isn't just educational technology conference people, but administrators and other people who are just that are very passionate about learning as adults in general. And when that happened, then it was a matter of I really wanted to make the videos premium quality. So I started to invest a little bit more in my time with it, in the tools that I use. Based on your recommendation, Jeff, I went ahead and put down the money for Final Cut Pro. I started to follow some people on YouTube that are professional vloggers and just pick up some things. And now I'm on my learning journey, right? Like I'm learning this stuff as I'm going, and pretty soon I'm passionate, I'm driven, I want to put my foot on the gas. And really it's just a matter of, when you feel like you want to let your foot off the gas, reminding yourself of the why. And that was the big thing for me. Like, I'm not in this to make oogles of money. Like, the vlogging thing is not my main job. I have a main job with benefits and a retirement plan and stuff like that. Like, this is supposed to be a passionate hobby of mine that allows me to put my voice out there to a bigger audience And as long as it has a positive impact on adult learners, I'm not letting my foot up.
Guys, I
I
want to
love
say I don't know how to finish off that one. Guys, I want to say thank you so much for your time tonight. This is obviously a subject that has many, many components, and we are going to be exploring this an awful lot. If you are over on Ask the Tech Coach, I believe it's episode number 41. We're going to be dropping that on March the 11th, I believe it is. It's basically about how to build your tech coach brand, how to get yourself out there. We talk a little bit about resumes, websites, logos, branding, colors, social media, a lot of this stuff that we didn't get a chance to talk through today. Check out that episode. Of course, we're going to link to it over here. This is TeacherCast Podcast, episode number 194. Guys, let me do a little round robin here. Tell us a little bit about where we can find some of the great things that you're doing. Jarrod, we've said it a couple times here, but what's your website? Where do we learn about you?
Professionallydriven.com has a ton of free stuff. It's where I blog. It's where I post a lot of my videos. However, you're going to find my vlog, Disrupted PD, over on Vimeo underneath the company Disrupt Ed TV. So you could check out Disrupt Ed TV. They got a bunch of other educators who are passionate in putting video stuff out there. But really, those would be the two locations, professionallydriven.com or Disrupted TV.
Richard, I know you've got a lot of channels. We all know about freetechforteachers.com. Where else can we find some of the great work that you're doing?
So practicaledtech.com is where I do my weekly longer tips. It's also where I offer professional development services, personal development courses online, and the Practical Ed Tech Summer Camp. If you want to come up to Maine, I promise it'll be warmer than it is right now. Come up to Maine this summer, hang out for a couple of days, small learning environment. And in my newest project, which is EdTech Fitness. Speaking of branding, look at that logo. Woo! Look at that logo. Done on Canva, canva.com. Nice. Check it out. EdTechFitness.com is all about trying to get teachers to take care of yourself so you're not looking at retirement and not able to enjoy your retirement. So,
Super Joe Pardo, we've been teasing it all day here. You seem giddy here as a podcaster. What is the big news that we can share with everybody?
So after nearly 5 years of podcasting, weekly and sometimes daily, I got approached to put together my own TV show for the Biz TV network, which reaches 40 markets, like 144 million households. And they were like, we want you to put a TV show together. And I was like, wow, okay, like, let's talk about this. And I was, looking at what they got there, all these shows are mostly talk shows about business. And I'm like, no. We're going to do the show that I want to do. And what the show that I'm doing is going and helping struggling businesses with their team, their offer, and their process. So the show is called The Top with Super Joe Pardo. And it's going to take place at the businesses themselves with the film crew and everything, wow, man. And there's going to be 26 episodes over the course of a whole year. There's like, they're going to run it the whole year with reruns and everything. So I am just like over the moon that everything that I've been working so hard for is coming to a head, at least to a point now, but it's just a little piece of like where we're really going here. So yeah,
congratulations, my friend.
Awesome.
That is
thank you.
Absolutely awesome. Guys, one more time, thank you so much. If you are out there listening and you have any questions, please reach out to us at TeacherCast. Leave us a voicemail over at teachercast.net/voicemail. We would love to have your questions on our next branding episode. And if you want to write us, leave us an email over at feedback@teachercast.net. We want to say thank you guys for making TeacherCast a part of your professional development network. Don't forget, if you're bringing podcasting into your classroom, you can check out podcastingwithstudents.com. And if you're looking to, bring in some instructional technology, you can go over to askthetechcoach.com. Check out our weekly podcast all about instructional technology coaches. We are here to help you and your school district. And on behalf of everybody here in the TeacherCast Educational Network, my name is Jeff Bradbury, reminding you to keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with your students.